Welcome to the Making Mischief podcast. Here are your hosts, Chris and Heather.
Welcome back to the Making Mischief podcast.
Where we like to make mischief.
Yeah.
Where we talk about Mischief toys and Gastley and how to build a toy company inefficiently and all that kind of great stuff. We're teaching you the right ways to do it by doing it wrong.
Yeah, we're very good at doing it wrong. Is there a reason why you can't sit still?
What do you mean? I'm just moving things around, okay?
You couldn't have moved it around before we started.
Sorry. I got keys. It's fine. It's okay. Just keep moving.
It's very hard to. You're very distracting. Okay, so now that Chris has completely taken us off of the Making Mischief podcast path, what do you want to talk about now?
Well, there's a couple different things. You just mentioned before we started recording about Trademark, because that's something we haven't really touched at all.
We
also talking about our first sale, which happened in January of 2022. That was the first time we had ever sold anything. We received all of our Gastleys, our initiation Gastleys and our common Gastleys, and we had to put them up for sale. And it happened within like 2 weeks' time. It might have even been shorter than that. I don't remember.
I feel like it was a little bit longer than that.
Because we received,
that I'll get into.
We received them in January and sold them in January. So it was like real fast. It was a quick turnaround.
No, I don't think we received them in January. I think we received them in December.
No, received them in January.
Did we? Because
Absolutely.
I believe, if I remember correctly, I think we sold the original Gastley like January 9th. And that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, we received them definitely in January. I remember it being the new year.
I must have started doing the stickers before we received them.
Maybe.
That must have been it. Okay.
Yeah, maybe that's the case.
So let's talk about the trademark first. That whole process.
Yeah, so we ended up going through LegalZoom. So I didn't know anything about trademarks. And even up to this day, I don't know a whole lot about trademarks.
Yeah.
But I knew it was something that was important for the brand name.
Yes.
So we ended up going for Mischief Toys first, which could have been an issue. I thought it was going to be an issue. So Mischief Toys was a toy shop somewhere in the Midwest.
I believe it's in Michigan.
No, it's not Michigan.
No.
Minnesota.
Minnesota, yeah. Minnesota.
Okay, so let me rephrase that. It was a toy shop in Minnesota. I don't think it's still there.
It is.
Is it still there?
Yeah, Mischief Toy Store in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yeah, so it's called Mischief Toy Store. At one point in time, that store was shutting down. It was going away, but maybe it's still around. But we were afraid that they actually had the Mischief Toys name, but it's Mischief Toy Store, not Mischief Toys Store.
Yeah.
So when we went for the trademark, I wondered sort of what would be in the way of us trying to get the trademark. I was really concerned about it. And so when we went for it, basically when you go through LegalZoom or any lawyer, they run sort of kind of a trial run of how hard it is going, or how hard it will be to get a trademark with the words that you're asking for.
Yes.
And so they came back, and it seemed very minimal. In fact, the lawyer was like, I think this is all going to be just fine, no problem at all. So we started that process. And by the way, if you ever go for a trademark, if you're going down that path ever, just make sure to realize that it's going to take you a very long time. I think it took us upwards of a year to get a trademark finalized, if I remember correctly, but it took a while.
I think it was over a year.
Because what happens with a trademark, without boring everybody listening to this podcast, is that they basically have to go out to anybody maybe who has ever had Mischief Toys, or whoever has something close to Mischief Toys, to find out if it's going to cause a problem. And then if there is some sort of company or some sort of brand that had Mischief Toys at some point or still has it, I think it's actually if it still has it, if they still want it or not, so you can take it.
Yeah.
So they kind of just, it's almost like a message sent all over the place. And then they have to sort of gather data. Then it goes through steps. It's like there's like a data capturing process. Then it lands on somebody's desk. And there must be piles and piles and piles of stuff for them to approve. So then it goes to like an approver. But there's all these different steps you have to go through. And because you're dealing with the government, it's not surprising. because dealing with the government, anything takes forever and ever.
It really does.
So really happy that we were able to get Mischief toys. That worked out really well. Using, or in other words, getting Gastley. That was the thing that I was most concerned about, because Gastley is a Pokemon.
Yes, which, we didn't think of the name based off of the Pokemon. As a matter of fact, that was an afterthought. So Gastley, as you may know, I believe we've talked about it on here before, was originally spelled Gastly, and that's how the Pokemon's name is spelled. So we were concerned...
No, I think his name is spelled Ghastly, if I remember correctly. No? Is it Gastly? I can't remember. Because I remember seeing the way...
No, it's Gastly.
Is it? Okay. Okay, then you're right. So I thought that us having the name spelled exactly the same would become an issue. And what's funny is that we changed it, Gastley, and the main reason I did it is my sister's name's Ashley. And I was like, Gast, because that's our last name.
Yes.
And then my sister Ashley. And I was like, because it's sort of similar. And I was like, that'd be kind of fun. You're using all the things, I guess, in terms of our family names and stuff.
Yeah, but at first, I remember when we were brainstorming, how do we change this? Because how many ways can you spell Gastley? And we didn't want it to be Ghastly.
Well, turns out...
Hold on, then I suggested Gastlie, and I was like, that is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it became, kind of got weird. And Gastlee, and I was like, that almost it reminds me of Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's kind of weird too. But what we found out was it did not matter how it was spelled.
No.
So there's something referred to as brand confusion. And for people who are watching this, there might even be a lawyer listening or watching this.
Or listening to this.
I'm not entirely 100% sure what it means. The only thing that I understand with brand confusion is if you see Gastley and another or our product Gastley and another product Gastley, and they're both little monsters, they have to make sure that there will not be brand confusion. So if you have Gastley as a little monster, and then, I don't know, Gastley as a name of a car. I'm just saying they're two totally different, separate things.
Yeah. Right?
Then there might not be a problem there. But if you have two little monsters of the same name, like the Pokemon character, it could be an issue. But come to find out, Gastley was never trademarked by Pokemon Company, Nintendo, or anybody.
No.
The people who have trademarked it are on the West Coast. We don't know a whole lot about them, but we have been trying for Gastley for a long time. I don't think we'll ever really need it, but I think it's good to make sure that we're legally covered with everything that we do, because that's one thing I always get very concerned about. I don't want to find ourselves in trouble. In 10 years, we grow Mischief Toys, it's a huge brand, and then there's a small company that comes out of nowhere and they're like, we said Gastley first, and then you got this whole problem. Most likely we could win it, but then you have to go through the court and spending money and everything else. I just don't want to have to deal with any of that.
Yeah, well, I don't think we have anything to be worried about. So
no, not for now. No.
Another thing within trademarking is you are trademarking specific things. So the way that we had trademarked Gastley was with vinyl toys and pins.
Yes.
So those are two separate entities. You have to pay twice, which is insane.
They're coded.
Yeah.
So they're by a number schema. So it's 501 toy figure. 502 vinyl toy. It's weird how it's broken down, but you have to make sure you collect or specify the specific thing. Yeah.
So it's an incredibly confusing process, and it just goes through all of these steps. And basically, whoever may own a trademark, if someone else had a Gastley that was a vinyl toy, if Pokemon trademarked the word Gastley and they had these little Gastley figures of their character, then there may have been some sort of an issue with Pokemon. Yeah. And basically, the government would tell Pokemon, hey, someone's trying to make a Gastley, this is what it is, blah, blah, blah. And Pokemon can be like, okay, that's cool. They can have that portion of it because it's not confused with our Gastley. It's spelled differently, it doesn't look the same, whatever. So, yeah, it's incredibly confusing. when you talk to lawyers, they use really big words that simple folk like me and Chris don't understand.
Well, if Nintendo had an issue with it, or Pokemon or whomever, they would just shoot us down. They wouldn't want anybody anywhere near what they're doing if they trademarked it. But they're not going out and trademarking every single Pokemon name. Of course, in the beginning, there's 150 of them. Who knows how many there are now? Like 1,000 maybe?
Oh my gosh, there's a ton.
There's got to be a ridiculous amount.
But I remember our biggest issue was with that DJ. There's a DJ Gastley somewhere.
Yeah, there's a DJ Gastley.
Apparently he had made pins.
Something like that. Yeah.
But he hasn't had an issue with us.
Well, I don't think it's really having an issue with you. Is it legal?
Yeah.
So are we allowed to trademark something that he already has? He has it. He has the rights to it.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to, is he willing to let go of those rights, or does he want to keep them for his own product and so on and so forth? So I don't know. Will we ever get Gastley? Who knows? Do we really need it? Probably not. We were just trying to go for all the things. And at this point, I think Mischief Toys is the most important one to have, because your brand name is the most important part. We can get away with Gastley all the live long day, I believe. I don't think we'll have a problem there. But trademarks are really silly, and I definitely recommend, if you're going to trademark something, start very early and make sure that you obtain it and then you retain it, because it is a grueling process. Not necessarily grueling process for us, it's grueling in terms of time and trying to make sure that things are complete. At the beginning, we were selling figures and everything else with Mischief Toys, like the brand name, on all of our boxes, but it wasn't trademarked. But if you purchased figures now, you'll see the trademark is included.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, that's sort of a boring sort of topic, but it's something I definitely thought was important to touch upon.
Yeah,
because it was one part of our saga that we had to sort of get through in order to make things reality or real.
Yeah, and not only that, but people ask us all the time, why is Gastley spelled different on the original pins versus now?
And that's why. Because we were stupid. And we didn't not stupid, but we were ill-informed. We didn't understand how it worked.
Yeah.
So we thought that the spelling mattered, and it didn't.
Yeah.
Bottom line. But, you know, the trademark process, long process, prepare yourself for it if that's something you're going to do. And I highly recommend LegalZoom. You can do it on your own, but doing it on your own, I heard, is grueling. You can also get a lawyer like that you know, or local. We looked into a lawyer that I went to school with. Her prices were unbelievable. I'm not saying that it was too much money, because I don't know what too much would really mean. But LegalZoom, they did it in a very fair way. It was fairly priced. I feel like we got our trademark without spending a buttload of money. Although, at some points of it, they were asking like $300, $200. So maybe in the end it would have been the same amount as our local lawyer. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
But we got it, and that's it. That's done. But let's talk about the sale of Gastley. The very first sale that we... Well, did we ever talk about the website? Starting the website and turning the website on?
No, we didn't.
Because we did that like a couple months before the first sale of Gastley, right?
We did that in August of 2021.
Yeah, so I remember you recorded a little bit of me standing there watching you push the button to turn the website on for the very first time.
Yeah, so basically what happened was we had to purchase MischiefToys.com because someone owned it, but they didn't use it.
Oh, that's right.
So we had to spend a stupid amount of money to buy that.
Yeah, it was expensive as hell.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And we got it. And we set up a Shopify store. And Shopify is something that I had experience with, like quite a bit of experience, because during the pandemic and even beyond, up until fairly recently, I worked for a company doing customer service who used Shopify. So I learned it that way. I had
on-the-job training.
I had to like troubleshoot, and I got very familiar with Shopify.
Can I pause you for a second?
Yeah.
How amazing is that? Because that's another piece to the puzzle with Mischief Toys.
Yeah.
Is that anytime something comes up where it's like, I don't know, something unknown to us or something new that we have to tackle in terms of Mischief Toys, that is a prime example of just how fate the stars aligned.
Yeah.
Because you already knew Shopify.
Yeah, and it was recent. Like, it wasn't like, you know...
That's incredible.
It was something that I had learned years and years ago. It was, like, something that I was continuously using. And it's a very inexpensive in terms of what you get for the cost. We actually have a really high up plan now because I decided, I think it was earlier this year or late last year, that I was just going to go ahead and pay in full for the next like 3 years or 5 years or something. I remember,
yeah.
Because of like one of the highest tiers, because they offer so much more than the more basic plan that we were using. But the basic plan's ridiculously cheap. It was like $20 a month or $40 a month or something. But
what's it now? I mean,
I don't know. I paid it in full. It was a few, like $3,000 or $4,000 or so for the next few years. But what we get with it is, they call it discounted shipping. I haven't noticed a huge difference in our shipping rates, but maybe like there's about to be a price increase. I think it actually happens today with USPS, and maybe we'll see like sort of a more discounted. I don't know. But the main thing that they offer that really drew me to those plans are the reports, because you could only filter a certain amount in the reports.
In terms of sales and stuff.
Sales and taxes.
It's a lot of analytical data.
Yeah, so they give us so much more with this plan. And not only that, but even first class mail, they insure up to $200.
Wow. Okay, so Shopify is its own beast.
Yes.
And then Shopify also has add-ons that you have to purchase, which apps or whatever, so we have all that.
Yeah, we'll have to get into that too.
That gets expensive. But turning on the website was a really big deal for us. It wasn't really that we had a figure to sell yet. It was really just turning the website on, saying hats and shirts are available. Now, I remember we shared out emails to people, I think, was it that how we worked it? Or we posted on social media?
We posted on social media and told people, you know, subscribe to the newsletter. This is where you'll get the most up-to-date information. And at this point in time, we thought we were releasing figures around Thanksgiving time. And then, when things were delayed, we thought we were going to be receiving the figures around Christmas time. And then finally, in the new year, we received the figures. So, in my opinion, we may have turned it off or turned it on a little bit early, but I'm happy that we did it because we built up our audience a bit. We sold some shirts, sold some hats. I think we even had like our last like 2 or 3 pin boards on there.
Really? Mm-hmm. Well, at the time the website opened?
Yep.
Wow.
And we had Mischief Toys masks, which we still have, by the way, if you want to go and get a mask, if you still are masking up or whatever, they're on sale.
Oh, MischiefToys.com, right.
Yeah, so please buy those because we have a ton. We, like, thought they were a really good idea, and they were. They sold like crazy at the beginning because everyone
the pandemic was
masking.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we bought them, and people were like, not masking anymore. And I'm like, oh no, what did we do? Yeah,
well, our I guess the way that we've operated, we sort of test to see what works. And I like experimentation.
Yes.
Because you really never know what's going to work. And, you know, we did something recently with dad hats, as an example. People were asking for dad hats.
Oh my gosh.
And we didn't sell that many of them. And we did it on a pre-order basis, but not many people pre-ordered them. And it made us realize, man, I am so glad that we do clothing on a pre-order basis now.
Yes.
Because we could have had a house full of dad hats.
Yes.
But I don't want to go too far into that conversation. Let's wait till later about merchandise, how we got into working our merchandising.
Yes.
Because things have drastically changed from the beginning. In the beginning, around this time that we're talking about, we were ordering boxes of shirts.
Yes.
And we had a friend helping us with them. And the first thing I said to my friend was, I really don't want Gildans. That isn't what I wanted in terms of the shirt type.
Yeah, so...
And we ended up getting Gildans. And
yes.
I was really bummed out about that.
So, fun fact though, Gildan does have those really shitty shirts. They look like SpongeBob SquarePants. They're like really boxy, sort of short, very uncomfortable material. However, our friend stopped working for that shirt manufacturer and we started to work with somebody else that we know and who I would say has become a pretty good friend of mine. Very, very, very nice person. I've met him.
He's a Funko fanatic.
Yeah, he's very into Funko, and I met him through our friend Jason.
Jason Swoboda, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, so let's not get too much into
Why
that.
not?
Okay.
But hold on.
Okay.
Our shirts now are actually printed on Gildans.
But they're nice Gildans.
They're nice Gildan. I didn't know that Gildan had nice clothing because originally we were going to get them printed. We really like Next Level shirts.
Right.
But they're a bit more expensive. So he was like, well, listen, hear me out. There is a Gildan that is not boxy, that is incredibly comfortable, and that is practically the same as Next Level, except a few dollars cheaper. And I was like so tempted to say no, like screw it, we'll just sell them for a higher price, buy them for a higher price. But I trusted him, and I'm so glad that we did.
Yeah, we'll get more into that too, because I think with all the merchandise, we started off with like the very boxy Gildans. We had hats as well. The hats in the very beginning were okay. They weren't bad. I feel like they didn't fit me well enough because I have kind of a big head. So that was the whole thing. But all this stuff we put up on the website. The shirts, hats, masks, stickers, pins, those pin boards. So we had a pretty good array of things up on the website, but no toy. And we were getting messages all the time asking, hey, where are the toys? Because they thought that we were the Mischief toy store.
Yes, and we still get emails from people in Minnesota asking us for like donations or like, we're having this event, do you want to set up there? And
exactly.
I'm like, what? Like, we're from Maryland.
Yeah, it happens all the time. In fact, when we went to that toy show we talked about last episode, at that toy show, we actually had somebody approach us and say, wow, you guys came all the way out here from Minnesota?
I remember that.
And I was like, oh no, we're here in Maryland. He goes, I searched for you guys and I found a toy store in Minnesota. Because I guess he was looking up all this like shops around his table.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting because I think that might have been our first foray into understanding that there's another toy company called
Mischief
Toy Store. Mischief Toy Store. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was a whole thing. But, okay. We've now covered trademarks. We've talked a little bit about merchandise. And I want to say, as we get into this podcast and we get deeper into episodes, I want you guys to understand that we might bebop around a little bit and talk about different things. And we might jump around in time, forward in time, backward in time. And the reason why this is happening is because we have so much to tell you and so much to explain that it sometimes is really hard to capture all the stuff that we want to tell you. So you might get bits and pieces and chunks of different portions of time in the Mischief Toys history. But I promise you that this podcast is a well-rounded, look into what we've done, how we've done it, and where we're going. So I don't want you guys to get upset listening to this and you're like, what the hell are they talking about? Merchant? Now they're talking about Gildan shirts that they're making this year. You know what I mean? So I just know that it might get a little bit weird, but if you listen to all the episodes in order, you will be able to keep up with us. So if you're just listening to this one for the first time, highly suggest you go back and listen to the very first one up until this point. Additionally, anywhere you listen to this podcast, please leave us a review, leave us some kind words, or even mean words if there are things that you don't like. Any feedback is always welcome. We also need ratings in order to get the podcast out there a little bit more.
And follow us and tell your friends. Post on Instagram or Twitter or your toy Discord groups or wherever, because, someone who's never heard of us might want to listen to our crazy journey. We
sort of want this podcast to be, in a way, revolutionary, because I don't know of any other toy company of our size and our growth so far and how we've done things really has a podcast out there. Two people who run a YouTube channel and a toy company, like side by side. And I find that this podcast is really interesting because at some point we will be intertwining more Gastlecast and Mischief Toys because it sort of has gone hand in hand. Drops that we've done on Gastlecast YouTube channel, just all sorts of crazy things. But let's move on to the topic of selling Gastley for the first time.
Yeah, so I completely forgot about this, but I guess I had ordered the stickers ahead of time. Typically what happens now, well, you know what? I'll get into that later. I'll talk about how we do stickers later. But I ordered the stickers before we actually got the product in because we knew exactly how many we were going to sell. So basically, we hoped and prayed that there were no damaged boxes because we had a set amount that we were going to sell.
Right.
I completely underestimated the size they need, or overestimated the size they needed to be. So I ordered our first run stickers and for our common Gastley and our initiation stickers. They were very big.
I remember
I want to say they were like 1.5 inches or 2 inches.
They were about the size of a pog, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they were
humongous.
Big. And not only that, but around the outside of the sticker, it was white.
Yeah.
And there's no white on our boxes. So I was like, what the
It was an eyesore. It looked like crap. It looked like crap.
It was awful. And it didn't even fit in the space.
Right.
And Chris was like, well, you already ordered them. I'm like, no, like this is not what we're going to put on our boxes. So I had to reorder them. We had to wait for those to come in. We stickered them all up. And then I remember one day we sat down and we signed all of the boxes. Now, one piece that we haven't really talked about too much, but he was a very, very big help in the beginning. But Chris had mentioned, I think, in our last podcast that we just weren't ready to have a third person involved. The way that I think they wanted to be involved.
Well, just in general,
in general too.
Well, we don't pay ourselves, and we didn't feel right having another person involved that we weren't going to pay because we haven't paid ourselves since day one. Because we continue
still to this day.
Yeah, we continue to roll the cash back into the business, which I think is good, and it's something that businesses typically cannot do because they're busy they need to make money in order to survive while growing their business.
Yeah.
Whereas we have like sort of our own gigs, our own jobs while we run this business as well. So we can run the business, continue dropping money into that business, and the growth is exponential. So knowing that we had another person involved, that we expect to pay somebody that's going to work with us, right? Because the company is in my name. It's really my company, although I think that Heather's name should be involved in it in case something should happen to me. We really need to work that out at some point.
No, there's some sort of reason that we put it in just your name. I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but since we're married, that doesn't matter.
But basically, we went to this third person who is still a dear friend of ours today, and it was one of the hardest things I had to do by, telling him, hey man, I know we've, come this far and everything, but for now, we just cannot have somebody on board who is working for the company. And there's a bunch of reasons. One of the reasons is the creation and the ideas that we come up with as a company. And we have to be really quick about it. Heather and I sometimes will be in bed at 11:30 on a Sunday talking to the manufacturer and making this major decisions about figures, about what is written on boxes, about artwork. We're making these really big decisions, and having this third person who was a part of it not being involved in in
our bed at 11:30 on a Sunday.
Well, not being involved in all the changes that we're implementing, it felt unfair. And I thought that, this is probably not the way to go. There are too many factors here that tells me that it's just not going to work out, at least for today.
Yeah.
Right? So in the future, things could change, and we could have another partner, or we have people working with us in Mischief Toys. But right now, it's a two-person operation.
Yeah.
This sort of, the funny thing is, real quick, is that we had some friends over last night that we hadn't seen in quite a while. Yeah. And they were asking us a lot of questions. Anybody who talks to us is really interested in what we do and how we do it. and we were sort of explaining things, which is why I think this podcast is so great, because people do have a lot of questions for us, and I think this answers a lot of them. But our friend looked at me, and we're explaining all the things that we do, and like our weekend of wrapping Tiki Gastley and wrapping toxic stuff, and he just looked at both of us and he goes, "You guys do this, just the two of you?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "It's just us." And he was shocked. He was blown away. He couldn't believe that it was just Heather and myself doing all of these operations. And I would say that Heather you're probably the biggest, hardest worker when it comes to Mischief Toys. You do a lot. You do way more than I do. That's for sure.
A lot of that has to do with the fact that, God, we're never going to get to the sale of Gastley. Not in this episode,
That's okay.
I don't think. Sorry, guys. I think we started off thinking that we were going to talk about the sale. But you work very hard doing Gastlecast. So basically, our days consist of, get home from work, chill out and have a snack or whatever. Then we jump into recording for the Gastlecast. Then Chris spends hours editing the video while I take care of making dinner and doing Mischief toy stuff, sometimes getting orders out if we have any that need to go out, things like that.
Wrapping stuff.
Marketing, wrapping, whatever. And, communicating with people. Sometimes, communicating with people is fairly easy as far as like our artists, because she's very good. She's sort of on the same page as us. She's knows what we
good.
like.
Oh my God, yeah. Can't say enough good about her.
Yeah, she's absolutely phenomenal. But communicating with the person that makes our shirts and hats, like all of it's fairly quick. So sometimes I can just send a quick email or message or whatever throughout the day. But, at night is when the heavy stuff goes on, wrapping, packaging,
right.
Whatever. So, it's easy for me to do, not only because you're busy editing, but because I understand Shopify as well.
Oh, 100%.
But, I think
we make a good team. At the end of the day, we make a very good team.
Yeah, but I think you need to shadow me and watch, like, how I do things sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, just in case you need to...
In case something should happen.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I agree with that. But I think
you need to step up.
We operate efficiently. Things get done, and that makes me really happy. But the sale of the very first Gastley and Initiation Gastley, we talked a little bit about the sticker here, where we ordered the wrong sticker, which slowed down the sale of Gastley. And it seemed like everything slowed down the sale of Gastley.
Oh my God.
We had to wait for the Gastley mold to be created and then for manufacturing to take place. Again, communication was really wonky in that time period where we weren't directly communicating with the manufacturer, which caused all sorts of issues. In fact, it caused a slowdown of about a year for Gastley to get to us. It could have been to us probably in the matter of 4 months, but instead it took an entire year.
Yeah.
And by the time all the delays happened due to the pandemic, they arrived to us, and then the stickers aren't right. So then we had to go through and order brand new stickers in order to sticker up Gastley, because we didn't want to sell them to people and not have the right things, like all the things that we wanted to be included.
And that was another unexpected expense. And we come, we have those quite often, like way more frequently than we should. Like, I feel like, it's human to make mistakes, okay? We ordered these stickers, they were too big, okay, we'll spend another, it was like a couple $100 to get more stickers made. And that might sound like a lot, and it is a lot for just stickers. Like, I never knew how expensive stickers would be. And believe me, I shopped around.
Right. Well, that's the thing about this whole business and things that we do with Mischief Toys. I don't think people understand quite how expensive this is.
It's
to
obscene.
Do. The amount of money that you spend to do something like this is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we look down at invoices from the manufacturer or prices of molds, right, like the Tiki Gastley that we just recently dropped, looking at the mold cost on that, it's like it makes your
Sick.
head, it makes your head almost fall off. So there's a lot that goes into this, and I'm just so proud that we've come as far as we have. But that first day, and those garage doors going up at the guy who was our middleman at his business, and all those boxes full of Gastleys were sitting there. I remember thinking, holy crap, what have we done? Oh my God, are we going to be able to sell these things?
Yeah.
Is this going to work out in our benefit? Is this the beginning of the end of Mischief Toys? Are we going to be successful? Will our house be full of Gastleys?
You forgot the number one fear. Will all of his limbs fall off of every single figure?
Oh my God, yeah, that was a whole other thing. Will he stay together or will he fall apart or what's going to happen?
Oh gosh, and we'll get into all of that in next week's episode when we actually discuss the first sale of Gastley.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about it in that episode. Bear with us because there is a lot to cover, and we want to give you all the bits and pieces, the juicy details, and even information like the trademark stuff, which is an interesting offshoot of running a business and trying to start a brand. I mean, we started 2 brands. You know, Heather and I started 2 brands. We got Gastlecast and we have Mischief Toys, and both of them have been pretty successful. And that says a lot. I mean, how many other people out there like you and I have 2 brands that are pretty successful and people know the names? People love watching the content. People love collecting our figures. I mean, we've done some really big things. I don't like to sit around and be a cocky guy all the time, but and I don't want to say this is cockiness, but it's just I'm so proud of all the things that we've done. Yeah. And so the sale of the first figures is probably the most proud moment that we've had so far in having this toy company. The first sale was unbelievable. And it's something I'll never forget, especially because I thought that we weren't going to sell a single one. But spoiler alert, we sold them all, and we sold them all very fast. But we'll talk about that in the next episode. Guys, remember to go check out our podcast. Check out our podcast Instagram.
Making Mischief Pod.
Yep, and check out our Instagram for Mischief Toys at Mischief Toys. And then go to mischieftoys.com and sign up for our newsletter. That way you can find out all the newest details about Mischief Toys. So don't miss out on that. Go check out all the things. Guys, remember, make mischief.
Keep current with Mischief Toys by following at Mischief Toys on Instagram and by joining our newsletter on mischieftoys.com. Thank you for listening to the Making Mischief podcast, and remember to make mischief.